Hello and welcome back to our last sessions of the day. We get to kick off, which for me is exciting as I try to process everything that we've learned today through these amazing presentations. We'll have Denise, Preeti, and Marjan joining me on screen shortly for a panel discussion about the promise of quantum computing today and tomorrow, and just trying to really dive into some of the trends and just in general excitement around the industry. So as we wait for them to join on. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
So maybe we'll start off real quickly with each of you giving a little bit about yourselves and your background. And we can start maybe as we'll just go across the screen and start with you, Denise, and then we can jump into a conversation.
Great, thank you. And thank you for including me. I'm in this small little phone booth, so I hope there's not too much of an echo. My name, is it okay? You want me to open the door? No.
It's okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Denise Ruffner. I'm Vice President of Business Development at IonQ, a quantum computing hardware and software company. And I also lead a group called Women in Quantum, which I feel really strongly about to promote diversity in this industry. And I'm excited to be with these two panelists. In my past, I've worked for IBM Quantum and another quantum startup. So I feel that some days I have a unique perspective on the industry, just simply having experienced different approaches and different technologies.
Okay, Preeti, yes.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks so much for inviting me to be on this panel. So happy to be working with qBraid and participate in this. And first, I'd like to say, Denise, you do have a very unique perspective, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So my name is Preeti Chalsani, and I am the Deputy Director for Duality, which is a quantum startup accelerator recently launched at University of Chicago and many of our ecosystem partners, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm also the Director for Industry Partnerships for the Chicago Quantum Exchange, which is a consortium of private and public institutions and with many industry partners.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Preeti. And last but not least, Marjan.
Well, thank you so much for having me as well, and so excited to be working with qBraid. I'm Marjan Bagheri, and I am the Operations Director and Engagement for the Quantum Algorithm Institute. I've been a part of BC provincial government implementing the institute, which has been funded over the next 5 years. And our mission is to create the talent that's lacking right now in the quantum industry.
Thanks. And before we kind of jump into our discussion, I'd just like to throw it out to the audience that this is meant to be a discussion. So if you have any questions that you'd like to submit via the Q&A or chat, we'll try to address them as we go along, because we have about 45 minutes, I think, to talk here. So I guess I'll kick it off saying that, you know, running an innovation campus and an accelerator with tech, and having been exposed to quantum in a more significant way through our relationship with qBraid, like I said, I'm coming from a real base level of understanding. I know about the potential and how great it is, but it'd be good to hear from the three of you kind of what you see as the promise of the future of the industry based on your experience to date. And I'll maybe we'll start because of Denise's earlier comments about her diverse experience and background. We'll start with you and just kind of move down and go back and forth.
The promise of the industry, wow. I think everybody on the phone agrees that this is a very exciting and promising industry, and I think we're all grateful to be part of an industry so early in its emergence. That's something we'll tell our grandchildren about, and I think it's really exciting. What I see, and I think what we all see, is every day there's new publications and new advances in both hardware and software. And while the industry is still very young, we can see that it's emerging, and it's emerging much faster than we expected. And I think the promise is really to do new things with computing, and in a variety of different areas. And I'll hand it over to Preeti and ask her to comment a little bit on her perspective of this.
Yeah, thanks. I completely agree with Denise. Like, I think what's really exciting about this industry is most of us don't really know what the applications will be, like what impact we will have. Like, we're still playing guessing games. There's a lot of great creative ideas people have had, but I'm sure if we're looking back at this conversation or looking back at this time 20 years from now, we will be doing things with quantum computing and quantum technologies in general that we had no idea we would be doing with it. And I almost feel like in some ways it's like a lot of the science we have known for many years, but it's like the engineering has advanced to a stage where we're able to try out these new ideas. And it's just such a multifaceted area with like people coming at it from the science, from applications, lots of support systems. Yeah, I can't even imagine what will come in the next 20 years. Marjan?
Yeah, so I feel the same. I totally agree too. I think it's definitely growing. It's maturing. The quantum technologies, the way I understand it, it's all maturing at the same time, and just a wide range of implications for number of the major industries. Like I'm hearing like financial services, mining, and logistics side, medicine, just growing. I think that's where QI is, or Quantum Algorithm Institute is going to be able to support, is by creating the talent and by training those people to come into the force and support the industry to actually bring forward their technology or the science that they have created.
Well, I'll start with maybe another question that's a two-parter, that both from your own perspectives and your own involvement in the industry, what are your highest hopes, as well as maybe your biggest fears in the short term, knowing that, you know, there's always a naysaying element to any new innovations, especially when it involves subjects that are beyond kind of the layperson, right? With this type of computing power. So maybe if one of you can jump in and we can go from there.
Okay, I'll start. What is my biggest hope? My biggest hope is that people start thinking about it and learning about it and feel that it's approachable and an opportunity. I think a lot of times you see physics and you see entanglement and you see all the stuff that you don't know and you think, oh, I don't want to deal with this. And if you can overlook that and look at the promise of the industry, I'm hoping that this industry will bring a lot more talent into it and can really blossom. I think my biggest fear is something I talk a lot about, which is hype. I think that there's a lot of overselling today about what the capabilities of a quantum computer are and what people can do with it. And I think that it's all of our responsibility to talk about it and in a responsible way and not oversell or create misinformation.
Yeah, I completely agree with Denise. And that's a question, this idea of there is so much hope, there's also this fear. It's something I think I grapple with every day because I really love the work I'm doing and I love being in this field, but then there's this gnawing thought, oh, is this all unreal? Is it all going to come falling apart? but related to the hype that Denise mentioned. But I think my hope comes from the fact that the people who are involved in this effort, like, really believe in it. People are on this really hard, trying to solve some really hard challenges. And even if, you know, for some reason, quantum computer as we are thinking about it today is not how it pans out, it's something else that's reality 20 years from now. All of these efforts were towards advancing all kinds of you know, really hard engineering, working on hard engineering challenges, advancing technologies like cryogenics and microwave engineering. That's not useless. We'll do something else with it. And it's really like, I think there's a lot of effort in the fields to kind of, you know, make changes in education. I think we heard about that from some of our previous panelists. This idea that, you know, one shouldn't think about quantum as this thing that you hear about in science fiction. There's a lot of effort and realization that we need to bring quantum to, you know, from kindergarten through 12th grade. You should hear about this. It should be something you're familiar with. Whether you're coming at it as a physicist or you're coming at it as a biologist or an artist, you should know something about it. And even within the Chicago Quantum Exchange, we have a number of programs in, you know, for building up curriculum and a new way of educating in quantum. qBraid's helping with a lot of those efforts, even involving scientists and, you know, art, bringing in art and music into quantum education. To me, that all of that is very hopeful. This is just like an incredibly rich field. And the fact that we're building this new field means we also have a chance to do things new, including things like what Denise is working on, like making sure we bring in women and we you know, we build in diversity and inclusion right from the beginning. Like, this is an opportunity we have because there's so much attention, so much resources, so many people involved in this field. And I think that's just great.
Yes, I totally agree with all the points that both of you have raised too. And one thing that I have to say is really great is in my job, bringing the real scientists to industry and matching up to solve some of those real world problems. I think it's so great to see some of that research, whether it's in computer science, physics, math, or engineering, and be able to match those to the problems that some of the industries are facing. And also bring government and include them in those problems as well, and local government, the port authority. So I think it's really valuable right now to see not just the hype, but the actual research that's being done and matching up to the problems.
Yeah, thank
women
you.
in quantum is great, Denise.
So I was just looking at some of the chat, and I think that there's some questions on how people can get more involved, whether it's in an internship or whether it's someone who has a career in outside industry, like being a physician or being a biologist. And so I think that's a really good topic for this team. And what I do want to say is there's a lot of great education out there, and a lot of videos, a lot of whatever. And so I really always encourage people to explore education and see what resonates best with them. One of the exciting things that, and I'd like Marjan to talk about internships, and I'm not sure if you have internships at Duality. So why don't we talk about internships for a minute? Sure. And I'll say that IonQ does have internships, and we have a cohort once a year, and it's very limited. But I would say a lot of the startup companies have internships. But I'd like to also hear what Duality is doing in QAI. So why don't we start there?
Sure, I can go next. So in terms of QI, I mean, one of our main vision and focus is to create the talent. And we are offering internships, many internships. And as everyone knows, government is funding a lot of these internships, whether it's federal or provincial, and we are working closely, partnered up with MyTax. What we are hoping to do or starting to do is take on researchers from the science side, academia, whether they're in engineering or the computer science or any related field to quantum, and also on the business side, and matching them up, partnering up with industry so that their research is actually focusing on industry. Not only do they get the exposure to working for industry or with industry, but also industry seeing some of those scientific projects being implemented, I guess, within industry. So hence, if anyone is looking for an internship, please contact TI. And if you, I think we also have a call for proposals out there on our website. And that means if you have any specific quantum research that you would like to implement in industry or work for industry, definitely send us your proposal.
I was trying to put a link in chat while we talk. So with the CQE as well, education and workforce training is a huge thrust area for us. We spend a lot of our resources in making sure we're spending as much time on building this up as in research. So we have a number of different internship programs, both through our member institutions. So CQE is a consortium of 6 private and public institutions, 4 universities, University of Chicago, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Northwestern, and University of Wisconsin in Madison, and 2 national labs, Argonne and Fermi. These are all located in and around Chicago. We also have international and regional partners, as well as industry partners. And we have internship programs through each of these. So all of our industry partners have internship programs, and we try to advertise that and try to connect our students to that. We have a number of research centers that are located at the CQE institution. So for example, one of the 5 DOE centers that were funded last year under the National Quantum Initiative, it's called QNext. They have internship programs. University of Chicago, we just had a workshop yesterday on called Open Quantum Initiative, which is geared towards increasing diversity and supporting diversity and inclusivity in this field, and we have fellowships through that. We also have a NSF-funded graduate program for supporting graduate students working collaboratively with industry and academia, or with a national lab in academia. This is fully funded through the NSF. So that's, you know, it's like a long-term, it's an internship throughout your 5-year or 6-year PhD career. So certainly I just put, I put the link to our internships page in the chat. If this is something you're interested in, please come look at our website and contact us. And there's no better way for students to understand how to advance their careers, what it means to have a career in this field, other than trying out different things through internships. I can't speak more to that.
So one other thing I'd mention is that I think all of us are very accessible. And what's nice about the quantum computing community is it's still very small. We all know each other.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun. So send us an invite on LinkedIn and talk to us, and we're all happy to help you on your journey. It's still small enough that we can help you. Now, even if you have a career, let's say I see a note from a physician or in a different industry, it's one of the exciting things about quantum that is kind of the reason why I wake up every morning is when I walk into talking to a customer and they have great new ideas. And so there are a lot of what I call traditional quantum solutions, which might be some finance applications or battery. But there are these days when I talk to someone that thinks completely out of the box and says, you know, what about if we did this? And I think there's not enough of that. And so I welcome the diversity of education, like from a physician, or the diversity of thought from anybody, because I think part of what's going to really give this industry a huge impact is people thinking of many different ways to apply it. And so I would just say there's a great group of people. If you look at the participants, I just looked at them. There's Alex Kahn, who's an educator and also part of the Creative Destruction Labs. There's Sandy Arani from UC Irvine. There's a lot of great people and connections for you to make. And so I would encourage everybody here to start connecting with people in the industry so that they have some ideas of people to call on, or, you know, when you run out of ideas and you want to ask a question, you have someone to reach out to.
So taking a slightly different direction, but I think something that's applicable with, you know, mapping the trajectory of the industry, I guess, against, I know from my background, I look more at, you know, where is innovation happening and where are the dollars flowing, and how everyone gets funding to continue to push the envelope. And I know that I'll say IonQ is going public this week, next week, soon?
Next week. So on October 1st, we're ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange.
So we're really lucky to have Denise with us today.
Wow.
I can only imagine how busy things are.
Yeah. But what's exciting about it, I mean, for me, like, it's exciting as a company, it's fabulous. But I think for those of us in the industry, it shows that the financial markets and the world is really supporting this new technology and the promise of it. And so I think it's a really positive sign for everyone that there's so many startups, that some of them are starting to go public. I mean, it really kind of solidifies this thing that a lot of times you go to conferences and you say, I'm in quantum computing, and they go, oh, that's 10 years away. Oh, that's a dream. Oh, that's not going to happen. And so now people are realizing it's here to stay. Yes, maybe it has to develop, but it's promising enough that now companies are going public and there's a whole group of people that support them.
So yeah, I guess to follow up with Marjan and Preeti, what are you seeing with regards to your initiatives? I know there's public funding involved, but how are you seeing the private markets come into play with some of the things you're trying to promote and your partnerships?
So here in British Columbia, I'm seeing a lot of the venture capital money being flown into the startups, and I think that's very common in the world these days now. Naturally, at QI, we are looking at developing the new talent. That's what we are seeing a lot of being funded right now. And then there's also a lot of, since the research community is growing, I think there's a lot of funding from the federal government and the provincial government, such as like the MyTax programs that I just mentioned, where MyTax funds a portion of the internships and researchers that students do. So I think there's a lot of funding there as well in Canada.
Yeah, I think from where I sit as well, I'm seeing a lot of diverse sources of funding, certainly. And I guess I can talk about it both from a research as well as for startups. Certainly, there's a lot of federal programs for funding research globally. Like every country is putting in, you know, no less than $1 billion. Like we don't talk in millions anymore, which is great for the field. Also, like a lot of state governments are putting in money, not just towards research or startups, a lot of infrastructure funding. So I know locally here in Chicago, a lot of the universities, both public and private, have invested a lot in building up labs and measurement facilities, all towards advancing this field. And that benefits not just researchers, but also startups. For example, all the duality startups have an opportunity to access these very advanced facilities. And I think that's crucial for startups in this space. This is not an easy field to be successful as a startup. But also, I think I agree with both Denise and Marjan. There's a lot of private funding from VCs as well as industry. IonQ is going public with a SPAC, but a lot of other startups are being acquired by bigger companies, both across the globe. So companies like Keysight have, I think they made 2 acquisitions. One of our CQE partner companies, Zurich Instruments, was acquired by a bigger company, Rohde & Schwarz. Another of our partners, Quantum Machines, which is an Israeli startup, just had a huge Series A. So like Denise, I take this all as, there's a lot of faith in the future of this field, and a lot of faith that all of these efforts will result in something positive. Even if we don't know what that is, there will be something big coming out of this. And one last point I'd like to make is, I know we're talking about quantum computing and we're thinking about companies like IonQ or Xanadu or PsiQuantum, all of who had big fundraising rounds this year. But there's also a lot of interest in companies that are, well, certainly with software companies like qBraid or others building applications, but also kind of companies building like control instrumentations. I'd mentioned Zurich Instruments, Quantum Machines. These are all building technologies that support the quantum computing effort, without which we can't have advances in quantum computing. And I think that's a huge opportunity space for anyone who wants to launch a startup or has expertise in this area. All of the, if there are students out there and you're working in labs and kind of really grappling with a certain problem and have come up with a solution, those are things that you can think about as fodder for launching a startup. I think one of the startups from Canada that was acquired by Keysight is building like quantum error correction technologies. Again, like it's a very niche area, but really, really valuable. And one should think about, when one thinks about quantum computing, there's all these other aspects of it too that are very fundable, and investors are looking at them with a great deal of interest.
I guess I'd follow up on that then, just with some of this commentary. And I know we started out with trying to say we don't want to jump to hyperbole about how amazing this opportunity is, even though it sounds very difficult to not, have I guess, a more forward-thinking, positive, just overall view of what's possible. But so on the other side of the equation would be, what are some of the bottlenecks you're recognizing, or what are some of the things you feel like need to be done to kind of improve outcomes in the short term? All across the board. I know it's kind of an open-ended question, but I figure with the broad base of experience here, you'll probably have some great answers.
Well, I don't know about the other 2 panelists, but I'll say the biggest bottleneck I'm seeing and I'm hearing from everyone is workforce. There's just not enough people to do all the work that needs to be done. So workforce and education, really.
And I would also, I like that Preeti mentioned a lot of the tools companies like Keysight and Zurich Instruments and Quantum Machines. I think there's a lot of innovation that needs to take place in engineering overall in the industry when we're trying to do something very difficult. And so I think there is room for a lot of innovation, and it's exciting to see companies that are really getting into kind of tools and components that are helping us assemble the hardware, because scaling the hardware is an overall industry challenge. And when you talk to any quantum computing company, they all talk about scaling. And so I think developing tools is a challenge, scaling is a challenge, and a lot of that resides kind of in the starting point of workforce.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the sufficient pipelines of talent is missing right now. Like, I think that will be able to feed the growth that industry is experiencing right now. So I think that training and having that pipeline where the experts can work on the the advancement the industry is making.
I guess I'm curious, Denise, you're on the other side than Marjan or me, and I'm curious to know how you're grappling with that problem. What are things you're doing to deal with this issue of not enough workforce?
So we're lucky we have a lot of people that are attracted to us. And so we have a lot of applicants. So we're not seeing, for us, we're not seeing as much of a workforce shortage. But we know that as we scale, we're going to need more and more. And so even though right now we have a lot of talent, we know that we need more in the future. So right now we're good. But I think, I know that when I talk to smaller startups and when I talk to other people, they always are saying they're having problems hiring. So I know it's out there, and I think it just varies maybe by your geography, maybe by all sorts of different other factors. But right now, IonQ is doing really well in that department, which is good. But you know what I do want to say to people is that you need to try. If you want to join a quantum company, apply. Take some courses, go for it. I think too often people feel like I don't have enough for something. And I think a lot of the companies are willing to help you in your training and help you move along kind of your growth. And so I encourage people not to be too scared and to try.
Yeah, if I can jump in on that one, because I feel like it's been a recurring theme that we've noticed on our end is just, hurdles to entry, right, is always a challenge. And just curious between the three of you is, a lot of people feel like because of the weightiness of the subject of quantum, right? You say the word quantum and immediately people go, PhD postdoc, like there's no way I can even talk about this intelligently unless I'm at that level. What do you see as kind of the minimum level of skill or experience for someone maybe to be able to get involved, to your point, Denise, where they'd be trainable, right? Kind of what the minimum skill sets might be, as well as where do you see when we're talking in this realm that we mentioned before about internships, how soon can that type of applied learning happen to develop this workforce? Can it go further down the chain into middle, high school, as we, as I know Preeti mentioned, it needs to be K through 12 at this point to have awareness of building that future workforce. I know there's a couple things embedded in there, but if you can pull it apart or I'll repeat it, it'd be great to hear your thoughts.
So one of the things IonQ does have an internship program. And one of the things we did is we looked for diversity among the educational background of interns. So my personal intern was a high school student who was phenomenal. And so what we did is we tried to get people at different levels in their education to try to broaden the opportunities for people and not just say, oh, I'm only going to take a postdoc or whatever that is. So I know that that's something that IonQ really looks at is diversity. And so now as far as like, what is the minimum learning? It depends on the role and it depends on what we want the person to do. And what I'll tell you is that there are people that call me for jobs that say, I want to be in quantum. And you say, what have you learned? And they haven't done their homework. So I would say, watch a couple videos, read a book. Whoever you talk to, show them that you've tried. And I think that makes a huge impact. And we're looking for people that can program. And that doesn't mean they have to program in quantum, but they can program or so they're an engineer. There's a lot of skills that aren't quantum kind of specialized. And part of what I think all of us try to do is attract those people to look at quantum as an opportunity, even though they're not quantum physicists, but a strong engineering degree is really valuable.
I completely agree. And I would even add to that, even if you don't have an engineering degree, but you're coming at it from a business background, there's so many ways to get involved in quantum. One of the startups we had going through our I-Core program a couple of years ago, like a quantum startup, they're very impressive business person. Like this is the person who was doing all the interviews, putting together all the analyses from all the feedback. I learned later she just finished her freshman year in undergrad. And like, I was just like taken aback at how amazing that was. But again, like, you know, she was using a lot of her skills to understand what this field required and getting into it from a business degree. Maybe she'll go on after her undergrad in an engineering discipline to be in quantum, but she started doing an internship a long time ago. And sorry, this was just like, I went into this anecdote, but there really are internships in tech commercialization. There's a lot of ways to get involved with quantum startups. I know qBraid has some interns who are undergrads. So that's another way of getting into this field and like just becoming familiar with it, understanding the landscape. I think one of the questions in chat is about someone who has a bachelor's in computer science and looking to get into the field. I think that's an easy sell. That's a really easy sell. Sorry to make it sound like this is trivial, but there's lots of people looking for computer science majors. So send me an email after or any of us, and we can certainly connect you.
It's a good point you're saying about the interns in business. Like Quantum Algorithm Institute, initially we only had business interns. And now we started having some legal interns. I mean, legal and IP is another big area for the quantum industry. So it is not just about the actual quantum experts. And now we've started recruiting interns in criminology, the cybersecurity side of things, where that's another important area for quantum. So I think there is room for everybody in quantum. Doesn't matter what your background is.
So I know from our end, having worked with qBraid, we have a bit of a bias, but I guess I'll throw this out there. What are maybe some of the resources that either you have available or you know that are available for researchers out there? So people that have a bit more sophistication are looking at really leaning into the industry and you know, maybe pushing the envelope. I guess what types of programs I guess are there, you know, knowing academia, normally you equate low cost for people who want to, you know, dip their toe in the pond. What types of resources are there that either you offer through your programs or industry, or that can help people with their research or getting more deeply involved at the professional level on that side?
I'll just start. One of the things that IonQ offers is what we call a research credits program, where anybody who wants to try our quantum computer fills out a form on our website and they get a credit to use our computer. And we did that because we want people to feel that quantum computers are accessible. And so that's one way to bring researchers in. There's also collaborations, there's also postdocs, there's a variety of ways. And it's really up kind of the researcher, how do you want to engage? What's your vision? And then I would say there's no shortage of programs or options in which to do that.
I think researchers getting involved like through QI, I think one thing that has benefited some of our PhDs or masters researchers is access to industry. Since we've got 6 industry members, AWS, qBraid, IBM, and others, and being able to access some of their machines or the applications they offer, and also see which one works or solves some of the problems on their research. So I think access to industry and that mentorship and seeing what is the difference between academia and industry, I think that's another thing that's sometimes missing. Like academia, it's all about the scientific and research side, and industry, yes, it is research, but it's definitely different type of research. So I think through QI. That's one benefit that a lot of the researchers have been getting or have been valuing.
Yeah, I think I would second all of those. I work a lot with researchers, and I see this often that researchers who are not already in quantum, maybe they were computational physicists or chemists, will slowly get into using, quantum computing or quantum simulators for doing applications. But it's almost, it's a question of interest if they wanted to, like, it's through conferences, within the CQE, or we have a lot of ways for them to be exposed to industry, to attend meetings, to attend seminars where these things are discussed. And then if it's a researcher in industry, for example, we actually have what we call a certificate program for advanced professionals. And this also happens very often. Like, you may be a researcher at IBM or Boeing, that has been working in industry for a long time, but not exactly in quantum. You have the skills, you just need a little bit of pivoting to be in quantum. And we have this intense 1-week course to be able to provide that background. And we often have, we also have people from government taking that sometimes, because they're trying to understand, what is this field about? If I'm going to be heading programs in this field, I need to know what this is about. So I think Denise had mentioned there's a lot of resources to kind of get up to a basic level of understanding. And then from then on, it's kind of, what are your interests? Either attend conferences, be members of professional associations where you can connect with people. And after this last year of being on Zoom, everyone's online and accessible so much more.
Well, this conversation has gone pretty quickly. We have a little bit more time left. Thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you all. I'm going to ask a question that's maybe a little more ethereal with regards to the industry in general. I'm getting the feeling that this industry, I know it's nascent, but feels more collaborative. Do you feel like collaboration is more important than competition at this point in this industry to really crack the nut of these problems we've been talking about?
So that's what's so funny about this industry, is normally when someone is your competitor, you're like, I won't talk to them. And we all talk to each other all the time. We're all in this together. And I think it's a really lovely time in the industry, because people are very open and friendly and helpful, even though they may compete with you, or even though whatever. And so it's actually really fun, because we're all in this together. And I think that's really what unites us. And so it's very cordial, very helpful, very generous. And it's a pleasure to be part of the industry.
I completely agree. And I think with QI, what I love about this is that you see industry, IBM, Microsoft, AWS, they're all sitting at on the same board, the same members, and academia as well. Our British Columbia universities, they're also members, and this is what unites QI. I mean, they're the founding members, and without the collaboration, it wouldn't exist. And I feel like the competition is now about getting the talent, like who is getting the good talent out there out of the pipeline. That is more the competition than between the industries nowadays.
Yeah, I completely agree too. And I'll say there's another place where competition plays a role, and it's very positive in that, oh, X had this much funding, or China released this much funding for quantum. Why aren't you doing it? It's all great for the industry. But yeah, I think it is a very collaborative field. And I think that's one of the exciting things about this field. Like, there's collaboration, scientists are collaborating with engineers, with startup, there's like academia, industry, startups, and industries like, big players like IBM or Applied Materials, with small players who become big over time. Like, it's just such an exciting place to be. And then it's also like, people building the technologies, people who have the application, so the domain experts, as well as startups who are trying to help like bridge these gaps. So for the Chicago Quantum Exchange, for example, we have almost 30 partners, everything from like companies in the finance space to telecom, to all the usual suspects in the tech industry like IBM and even Boeing. And everyone actually wants to hear from each other because we're all trying to figure out where's this field going. And often people want to be around this because even if they don't have an idea of what they want to do in quantum, they want to know what other people are doing. And so it is a really exciting time to be in this. And for duality too, that was one of the reasons why we wanted it. Like we wanted duality to exist because I think there's so much to be learned from being part of this conversation, part of this ecosystem. I can't agree with Denise more that it's just a really great field to be in.
I guess on that point, knowing someone who's had a career in tech, that it's refreshing, right? To hear that. And maybe it's also a testament to how large this is, that there's so much respect for the potential, that everyone knows it's not worth winning to the detriment of someone else because of the impact this could have. Once again, looping back to the hyperbole and trying not to be too grandiose, but it truly seems like it's just one of those industries that could really be defining on so many different levels. So I guess to kind of wrap up, it'd be nice to just hear any final thoughts the three of you have, or any general pitches for what you're working on that you'd like people to know out there, just as we hope to use this and distribute it and just educate more people on the industry. We can go in order again. We'll start with you, Denise.
Put me on the spot. I was hoping Preeti would go first so I could.
Oh, okay, we can switch it. Preeti, you ready? Or
Preeti,
I think my final thought, kind of falling on the thread of a lot of the conversations and questions we've had, is there's not a linear path to get into quantum, and the quantum field is not one homogeneous field. There's so many different things happening. I think you can be involved as a spectator. You can like inform yourself by reading things. There's many, many more opportunities coming down the line. And I think, it's just such a rich space that if you have ideas, just jump in and like come talk to someone and see if we can work with you. Even if it's like you want to write up an article, like I've seen some really great articles from like people who knew nothing about quantum but spent a lot of time trying to understand this one thing that they were writing about. And I was like, I actually learned a lot from reading that. And even though I talked to that researcher every day, I didn't understand that this is what they were trying to do. So just that's another example. I think it's a new field, and I think we all have an opportunity to build it the way we want. That's my last thought.
Marjan, we'll go next to you. We'll let Denise have the final word.
Okay, so I would say that if you're interested in testing this out or entering the quantum force, definitely take that internship or a co-op program, or attend some of these workshops. I think it's a great opportunity for especially the young minds, like coming out of undergrad. Like I remember when I was doing my undergrad, I would have loved to be in the quantum industry right now, or in the quantum field, to get exposed to some of these great opportunities. I think it just takes one workshop or one internship where you see where you want to go. I've had a few co-ops at the University of Victoria who had joined QI. Their passion was business, but they came to QI for 4 months and now they want to get into quantum. And that was only because they were exposed to some of the quantum researchers, because they were working on their research projects and supporting them in either writing or formatting, and got to attend some of our meetings, and now they want to go into that field. So I think it's a great time to get exposed to that if you are in school or want to change your career, or you don't have kids yet and you can do that.
Oh, so I have the last word. This is tough. I was trying not to be the first. Now I'm last. How many people have been to a seminar where the speakers have said, link with me on LinkedIn and I'll help you? I love that because that's really what, to me, shows the generosity of people in the industry. So I would tell you that I would just encourage everybody to look around, see what interests them, get advice, and go for it. I think too often we put barriers in our mind that this is too hard or I'm not a physicist. And there are rules for everyone. I'm reminded of one of our programmers or our software people that said, I never thought when I went to school I would be controlling lasers with software that run a quantum computer. And so bring your skills to this industry and you can learn more and contribute greatly. And it's very challenging and exciting. So just jump in and get some education and join us.
That's an amazing note to conclude on. Great last words. So thank you to the three of you very much. Appreciate it. Great to kind of get this perspective from all of your different specializations and where you're working. So we really appreciate it and look forward to following up, and I guess look forward to watching things with IonQ next week. Good luck. Always exciting to be listing and as a major milestone. So yeah, thank you very much. And we'll now get ready to move to our closing keynote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.